You're not inconsistent. Your life just has too many unmade decisions. Every time you leave a decision unclear, what counts, what matters, what happens if you miss it, you create a gray zone. And that's where consistency is dead. Every time you say, I'll do it later, it leaves a gap in the system, and that gap will be exploited every single time by your brain. So instead of trying to be more motivated, I built something simpler. A system that actually closes these gaps and makes consistency easier. So we're gonna go over how to close these gaps, where to find them, and how to make a system that actually runs. So here's how it's exactly gonna work. First, we're gonna go over why gray zones remove consistency. Then, we're gonna go over the system, Purpose OS, and how that engine removes decision making. Then, we're gonna go over how you turn your life into data with journals and templates. Then, we're gonna go over how to use AI as an ally that helps you improve, find blind spots, and improve the rate of learning. Then, we're gonna go over how to tie it all back together and make your own system in 30 minutes or less. No motivation, no guessing, just a system that actually works. All right, let's start with chapter A. We're gonna go over the definition first. A gray zone is anything undefined that forces you to negotiate with yourself in the moment. Why is that bad? Because in the moment thinking allows our brain to respond in emotional ways or with a compromised state. And that's where things break. So instead of allowing undefined areas to introduce negotiations, we're gonna allow our brain to break this pattern by introducing certainty and clarity in the systems. Because every time negotiations happen, they delay. Delay leads to avoidance. And every time you delay, you allow your brain to learn that your standards are flexible. Laziness is not caused by this. It's simply just ambiguity. And that's what we're solving with these gray zones. Here are the most classic examples of gray zones. No start time, I'll fit it in later. No minimum standard, you avoid it or overthink it. No clear done, so you never feel finished. Task too big, so you simply push them forward. And the best of all, I'll do it later, I'll decide later. So now the fix to these classic gray zones is that systems allow no negotiation and allow pre-decided rules. So it's really fewer decisions in the moment, which is not motivation working, right? And this allows the brain to not go to this common pattern of using these gray zones to become an escape. All right, let's get started with the Purpose OS. Now, if gray zones are the problem, then the solution is simple. Let's remove them. And that's exactly what the system is gonna do. Because purpose is not something you feel, it's something you define. Because if your direction is unclear, your actions will always be unstable. And this is what we really went over in the last episode. And now this episode will really be about the actions and the tools that we can use to really speed up and accelerate the process. So here you can see this little diagram of how this will really work. And I really just wrote it down clearly of how this would go about, right? So this is what I would ask you to copy and fill in. You take some time to ponder and sit with yourself and ask, what exactly is my 12-month purpose? And what are the values that help me get there? What is the impact that I'm looking to create? And who benefits? Is it me? Is it my family? And what are the primary actions? What are the things that I will do? And that's where the values and actions combine together to help you get where you need to go. So, of course, even when it's hard, it's going to be hard. You're going to still be able to push through it. And that's why committing to a system and to your purpose, even though when times get hard, is basically choosing that purpose is not passion, but passion is weather, and purpose is the direction that keeps you aligned and allows you to live a life that is meaningful, right? So then we're gonna have our craft and mastery. Like, what am I building? Like, it's really 3 pillars. You don't want to go too thin or too broad, but I think 3 pillars is just enough that it allows you to experiment with different areas and have kind of this cross domain reference where in one area it will show up in the other, and it will allow you to just speed up, and kind of each domain or pillar will support the foundation. That's why the pillars hold foundation, right? So that's really what this is. It's a more of a simpler way to answer it. Feel free to modify it here and there to really fit your workflow of how you really want to write this down, but this should just give you a really clear understanding as we move forward to the next chapter, right? So now the 14-day experiment is like, okay, what will I do? What are the tasks I will do? And what is the energy that I will get? Like, this is like just like you're gonna answer, okay, out of 1 to 10, how did I feel? Was it a good feeling? And just like, it's simply just it's building the connection in your brain that allows you to pause and ponder, okay, how did I feel? And it allows you to get this macro view. And once you have this ability to get this macro view, you can start honestly almost treating your life as your third view, watching your life play out. And this is really powerful because it allows you to watch your patterns and move faster. And this is like the whole point of this episode, right? So then we have the weekly review. Well felt, most alive, where did you create impact? And then, personally, I wrote avoidance of perfection, excuse me, but I wrote that because I was like, that's something where I'm kind of dealing with. But 100%, please modify it to your own drift that you feel that you have deviations with. And then what is that commitment? It doesn't have to be big. You don't have to make 100 lists of, I mean, I had this problem too. So many commitments that I've signed, that I've like committed to, and it makes it all overwhelming. So now, just having one commitment and one improvement per week allows that compounding nature to take place. So that's where the compounding loop happens, right? So now here, I just filled in my own raw take of how I would go about this. It's kind of big, but I want it to be detailed enough that you can read this, you can understand this. But basically, for me, it's like, I mean, I'm listing a lot of words, but these words have become so important to me because of the values that I hold myself accountable to. So for me, discipline, patience, courage, wisdom, and emotional regulation, system thinking is like really, really important. So I want to use these things to create tangible impacts. And when I say tangible, it's not exactly that. Like, tangible just basically means you can feel it, but it doesn't have to be felt physically. It can be felt emotionally as well. I just feel like if I have these values, I'm able to bring it to the pillars that are important to me and see results, not right away, but of course within time. And sometimes the results are not going to be present, and that's why we allow ourselves to create a to-do list and goals that are achievable, so that once we do hit that, we do get that that satisfaction, so we can continue moving forward, so we don't need to burn out, right? So this is basically what I'm writing. I'm writing that trading, business, and AI and communication is really YouTube. It allows me to get that freedom. These are the instruments that allow me to sharpen myself, allow me to operate at my highest level, highest self. Like, a satisfactory day is me doing these 3 pillars, and that is what I'm committed to. And that's what I don't want to do anything else but that. And of course, with balance and allowing other things to happen in life. But that's the type of commitment you want to bring to the table, because your brain is very very moldable, and the way you talk to yourself, the way, not in front of people but by yourself, and this purpose OS is exactly what it will cultivate, is the ability to talk with yourself. And that way you talk to yourself will eventually start molding your brain in such a manner that you speak with conviction, that even when you're lacking, you feel misaligned. And that's when that stronger voice steps in and stops the behavior and brings you right back to equilibrium. And that takes time to build, but this is exactly what you would need to do to get started. So then I have the contribution, my relationships, the 14-day experiment. It is really the way. It doesn't have to be this broad as I did, and it doesn't have to be very lengthy. Honestly, this is my first take. I did this like 4 times, right? It needs to really. I spent 2 hours doing this, and I feel like it's still. Of course I could write more. Probably could write novels on this, but why? Keeping it short is just powerful too. Less is more, right? And that's something I am trying to cultivate as well, right? So my 14-day experiment is really that I'm kind of favorable with the timings. The daily action can start. I wanted to say 15 to 16 minutes just simply because it really adds up. Like, you must have heard of the rule that if it takes 2 minutes to do it, right? If it's a 2-minute task, do it right away. If you're starting to procrastinate and you're starting to hold back on starting something, just do 2 minutes. Just do 1 minute. Just do a little bit. And it starts to be like, okay, you know what? I did it. I could do a little bit longer. And that's why I want to start small. So for me, I'm just setting arbitrary times right now. And of course, I'll build off that and add more time. But I wrote a shorter time because I want this to really be like the starting point. This is how it should be. Honestly, even if you spend 15 minutes on your 3 pillars per day for a month, that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. But I will ask you to push yourself, level up, and then move to 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And then, if you really get serious, you can make it like a full-time job or a part-time job. Even if you work a 9 to 5, you still have your 5 to 9, and that allows you to work on your pillars as well. So then I have my success metric and the things that keep me aligned, what gives me energy, what gives me meaning, and what are the constraints, like what is that I won't sacrifice. And it's really important to write this down because in times of pressure we tend to sacrifice things that are very important to us. And for me, I used to sacrifice a lot of my sleep, but I do not do that anymore, and it's like it's a non-negotiable. So that's why I wrote it as number 1, and then emotional regulation, and then workout movements. Like, I need to be moving. I should, sometimes I like to park the car a little bit further away, or I would take the slower route, just because that movement allows the brain, like, it comes back to our ancestors' time. Like, we always had time to move and walk, and bringing back that mechanism is, I think, a very healthy way to decouple around the stress of what the world gives us or faces us with. So then for me, it's also fake urgency. My brain loves to create fake urgency, so I cannot be doing this, and impulsiveness and short-term validation. So these are something I actively work on. I'm catching myself slipping or deviations daily, but the thing is, like I say, this purpose allows this conversation with self and allows that self-awareness to build up, so you get that third-person view almost, right? So then I filled in the weekly review, and you can see that it's really simple. I tried to make it a little bit more compact because it's a little bit lengthy to read, but I'm not asking you to read it. I'm not asking you to get the idea. You can pause and, of course, take a photo and understand, okay, this is how he did it, this is how I would do it. But yeah, this is basically what I felt during this week. And I feel like right now I'm trying to prevent rabbit holes, because once I get started, I want to learn more and more and more. And it's like my brain wants closure with the topic before it can move on. And I'm trying to actively be aware of it and put preventions to avoid doing that, right? So that's really it. I'm going to move on to the next chapter, and that will be the journals. But before I just do that, I just want to say that these constraints, like I say, with the timing, with the review, is just, these constraints prevent burnout, and this is your risk management. Because With compounding, like if you were to trade something, like put money in the S&P 500, you're going to have you're going to have a risk element, right? And you will know that it will compound over time, but if it depends on how long your horizon is. But like I said, this is a 12-month horizon. So with the 12-month horizon, you do want to have risk mitigation, and risk mitigation means that you start compounding slowly first, and you start understanding, okay, what needs to be a trade-off, what needs to be sacrificed, and so on. Okay, so instead of saying I'll change my life, right, you're running a controlled experiment now. This is basically what you're gonna start being. This is what you're gonna start doing, and the small action and the measurable output and the short time frame allows the building to happen. The building, the brick by brick, which expands to greater awareness, and of course the main goal, acceleration with growth. Because this is not about learning fast or getting to your destiny or goals fast, but it's more about the best route to take, the time to pause and evaluate what you're doing and what is holding you back. So again, you're not trying to become perfect, you're trying to become predictable. And this is exactly what this is working for. So now the templates and journals, it is simply that now once you have a system, you need feedback. Your brain is emotional in the moment, but your journal is objective over time. Most people journal to express. Well, I journal to detect patterns. You're turning your life into data, not complicated data, just enough to see what exactly works and what doesn't. This is what the data does, right? And so then here it's really simple. I made this, like I say, I wanted to start small. So it's really just a 2-minute activity that you commit to. Like I said, if it takes 2 minutes, just do it. And that's exactly what mattered today. Finishing episode 3, which I'm doing right now. What did I avoid and why? I avoided building the final review for my business because it felt too complex. One win, I setting a fixed time and following through. So I was able to set this time and continue to record no matter what things happened around me. I committed to that and I followed through. My one friction is big tasks feel daunting. I that is definitely something that is holding me back. And then adjustment is that I'm going to break down long tasks into bite sizes. So I'll write that more detailed in my to-do list. A to-do list is not just go grocery shopping. No, it's like that's one example. But if you were gonna write a to-do list, let's say for example, go grocery shopping. Sounds vague, but when you add detail, like okay, I have to pick up this, I have to do this, it should take this much time, and I'm gonna have to travel this much, and then I have this next. So it allows the brain to already do the pre-deciding and negotiations already, so that in the moment you're just executing, you're just going with the flow. And of course things can still come up, but that is the muscle that you're training, that in the moment reactions will feel less daunting and less powerful over you. It will have less of a grip over you. So then the weekly, again, I kept it simple, but basically it's that for me, time blocking and preventing tasks and preparing tasks the night before really worked. So before bed, I would prepare my tasks for tomorrow, and it has been very beneficial. What failed, again, not breaking up big tasks, which allowed procrastination. And this has been going on for a week. So doesn't mean that I'm now lacking behind or I'm a failure. It just means that, okay, this is getting bigger. It's taking me more effort to try to handle, but I won't give up. I'm just going to really try to find the patterns. And that's why the next topic, which is the main one, is how AI can help with this, which I'll get to. And then I wrote about the biggest gray zones. If tasks, like I said, if tasks feel too big, I go with easier ones. So my brain knows that, okay, I have a lot of tasks, for example. So the big one, I can skip it. I could do the small little ones. They add up to the same amount of time. But it's choosing between what is a good use of time and what is a great use of time. Like, you must have heard the saying that you should choose the tasks that are
effing yes, like you would say, yes, I would love to do that. But if they're not tasks like that, they're not best use of your time. So then, yeah, one focus for next week is I'm gonna, I can vibe code now, so I'm gonna build a little app that can tackle like big tasks into a nice, cool flow. It makes it kind of gamified, it makes it kind of fun, and that's something that I'm gonna do. I did it fun. It sounds fun. It's a new kind of hobby that I can start doing, and who knows, I can make it a product. That's the type of things that you can think of, right? So before I get to that, I'd like to show you, like, I've been doing this for a considerable amount of time, so I built up larger templates, and I wanted to show a little bit of them. So I'll show first my daily template that I enter for just my overall life, and I fill this in. It started off much bigger. I started filling out this big boy. But it felt too much, and I would have spent more time on it, so I decided to minimize it, and this is what I'm going with. There's yes or no questions. There's, like, I love to add gratitude to the journal because it really allows appreciation, which I feel is really underestimated, how much gratitude helps throughout events. And then I have, like, my closing thought. It's like a free write. I just simply, dictate what I'm saying. Like, another real thing I want to let people think about and kind of get out of your head is that you don't need to type all this. I know that might seem like, like friction, but no, I speak it. Like, you can literally now use dictation or whisper, and all these tools, you can literally just type free dictation tool or make one. It's that easy now. And it's no friction. Any friction you have can be solved. It's just the will and the purpose behind it, right? That's why purpose is so strong. When you have the values and the action and the daily actions, it allows you to be like, okay, no, I have to commit, because you're setting fixed times. And of course, you're gonna catch yourself lacking and not staying true to what you said you're gonna do 100%. But you're able to now have that third person view. That's what these journals introduce. Okay, and then lessons from videos. Basically, I like to watch a considerable amount of productive videos about life and about blah blah blah. So I would like to summarize these into bullet points, so that I found this common pattern that was a gray zone, that I would watch a lot of YouTube about business or something of the sort, and then I would totally forget about it before the next day. So I would like, I'm gonna start journaling it, and it added a good maybe 5 minutes, because I use tools like AI that help with these processes. This is more admin work, but these admin work can now be done faster and simpler with AI. That's what we're gonna get to. So this is my daily, and I would say I leveled up, but I moved to a weekly template, but that is pretty long as well. But I really like this one. I don't mind that the weekly template takes a little bit longer, because I really want to get the key lessons that really were important, right? And then I have the monthly. That is again a little bit long, but again, it can be done faster with AI. But it's good to pause and look into, okay, what am I doing? What are the things that are holding back? And I really found this, like, I've been doing this for 2 years, and it's been incredible. No, it's actually been almost 2 years, and it's been incredible. And then I have my quarter review, which is as I'm posting this, will be around the end of Q1, so I have to start preparing for Q2, and then I'll plan and write down what I'm planning to do and all these things, and then my yearly review. So that's all about life. But I kind of wanted to have a separate, more focused views. So then I decided to even have a trading one, which is right here. So this would be my trading one that I fill on a daily basis, and I have a weekly template, a monthly template, and again a quarterly template, so on and so on. Because anything that requires time to type or speak is now getting so much easier with the ability of using AI. And it doesn't mean that AI is writing it, but AI is helping me get the patterns faster. And the best part of all of this is that how much data you're collecting, and that data is exactly what allows you to catch things on a longer horizon. That's exactly how machine learning works. That's exactly how things are caught, because you get so much data and you can start finding outliers, right? So then I have one for YouTube as well, and monthly and weekly. I don't have a daily because of course it's like some things don't need a daily, right? And then I have one for my business as well. So that's basically it. And then of course I have my schedule, that I have my non-negotiable short-term goals, long-term goals, and then my schedule that that is lacking a little bit definition, but because I have another list that is more like, because this I don't like to really touch. I like to just keep this as like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. But then I have a more modified one for when life throws different events at me, or when I need to really define exactly what the big tasks are and have a little bit quicker, cleaner, write and delete type of approach. So that is basically it. And now I want to get to the next thing that I wanted to bring up, is that the power of the second brain. And I wanted to bring this up just that, this is what I was talking about. So I write the tasks I need to do in this like little order, and then I would write like my everyday tasks, what I'm planning to do tomorrow, today, and then my recreational time, and then I got my miscellaneous stuff and my values. Is like a lot right here in front of us. But beauty of this is that my brain sees this as a connection. Like, the power of a second brain is only becoming more and more powerful. And I found this as incredible for reference, right? So for example, there's so much your brain can hold, and there's so much memory that you can remember. So why not offload that? Why not delegate that? So simply having a second brain with like OneNote or Notes, Apple Notes, Samsung Notes, whatever, you can use these tools to really get in the habit of writing down exactly what you're thinking immediately. And this can happen so easily, like when you're like on the go and you're just like, I got a thought and you need to write it down somewhere. You just do it. You build that action behavior that you will follow through on writing down it. And then you start writing like miscellaneous things, some random things, and you start building this repertoire of all this information that your brain builds a connection to. So instead of me being like, okay, yeah, what was that type of breathing that I need to do when I'm stressed? I have no idea, I can't remember, but I wrote it down. My brain knows I wrote it down and knows exactly where it is. My computer has become such a strong second brain that I know exactly where in my computer, in the exact subfolder, in where area that I can find something that will help me. Like, that is a type of, our brains are so good at the pattern. That's a pattern. It's in this folder, this subfolder, and it's named this. That is the pattern that the brain has learned. It doesn't have to remember, okay, what's in that folder? What exactly did it say again? No, there's none of that. That's the power of a second brain. And I would really encourage this. Like, even if I go back to this screen, you can see that I really broke down things into second brain, like financials, my business, trading, YouTube, and I just write about everything that I've thought about. And it also again becomes data, and that data can be a reference to, and all this is just connections that my brain is aware of and can connect to, that when I need, for example, some discipline reminders of, okay, what are the type of disciplines, what are the type of things that I was held back by, I can look here and I remember, okay, yeah, I remember what social discipline is, was philosophical discipline. So that's the type of second brain, that's exactly what the second brain brings to us. It brings this, it honestly expands your knowledge, because instead of remembering everything, you know where everything is. And yeah, I know you could also just search things away, but it doesn't really bring that natural mechanism that the brain has with the patterns, because searching things away, you're always going to be introduced to new answers, and it's not always going to be the same. And the second brain allows you to just expand to all areas that interest you. Okay, so coming back to the point that I was bringing, is that just simply stuff without like, it allows reflection to happen and repetition. And with reflection and refining, you're not someone trying to become productive. You're someone who observes and adapts and improves. And about the second brain, it's like I said, it's delegating and offloading memory intensive thoughts into a second brain that can be referenced at any time, having freedom with an endless canvas. Like this right here, this thing I have right here, it's like, this is also a second brain. This can very well be a second brain. And these patterns that you build, like me looking over this again and again, I will remember it. It will be in my memory. I won't remember the details, but I remember, okay, that's what it was written. So that's the type of patterns that you can build with second brain. So that's also what I meant about the subfolder. So now we get to AI. So now imagine you could accelerate all this process. Like I say, you can now, because AI doesn't replace your thinking. It's here to sharpen it. It's here to become a tool of delegation. It's there to save you time. Most people use AI for answers. The real leverage is that to use AI to see what you're missing, to find the blind spots. AI is just like a mirror that you can look at, but that mirror allows you to reflect different angles of who you are in such a way, right? It reflects patterns you can't see clearly on your own, and instead of thinking harder, you ask better questions. So AI also teaches you how to prompt, how to ask questions, it allows you to honestly become a better person in the world, because you start to ponder better, you start to wonder better, and you are able to refine your questions in such a way that, asking it to a human, you only have more description, because AI works very well with context and with sharp answers. It doesn't have to be so good, but you start building better ability to prompt. And prompting, I think, is not just a tool for AI, it's a tool for asking the right questions. So the quality of your life improves when the quality of your questions improve. And this doesn't just go for AI, this goes for a lot, right? You capture your data, like your journals, then you analyze it, and then you adjust it and repeat. And you do this with the help of AI. AI becomes your ally in this. And AI just speeds up the feedback loop. That's really it. And I think the best way, I just broke this down in a few prompts. The best way to start is that build a context. If you haven't started with AI yet, which is unlikely, definitely unlikely for anyone watching this who haven't started with AI, but AI has the ability to take memory. So I'm not aware of some models, but for example, ChatGPT now can store memory. Claude can now store memory. Gemini can now store memory. Grok, I'm not 100% sure about, but these are the mainstream models that can store memory. And for example, ChatGPT, the more you talk to it, the more it remembers. And even if it doesn't know that much about you, or you're watching this video and you're like, wow, okay, I don't think I have the best memory with it. You can go ahead and start a fresh chat and give your context with the first prompt. This is my 3 pillars. These are my biggest current challenges. These are my non-negotiables. This is what consistency looks like for me recently, and that is the context. You can even go crazy. Again, with AI, you can just speak. You can just press the dictation button on all these models, and that is powerful. I wouldn't recommend the full voice model, because the full voice model, they do not work as well with breaking up the points in a concise order, as well as the chat models. What I mean by that is that if we go here, you have this button to dictate. This is much better than going to using voice, and you can find it in Gemini. Gemini just gives you the microphone, which is good, but I know you can. It might ask. I think you have to start another chat, and then here, use voice mode. Wouldn't recommend it. For Claude, you need the app, the mobile app or the desktop app to speak to it. So this, I wouldn't recommend the voice mode, because it doesn't break it. You won't get this type of format, and this type of format is what we're looking for. So now we give the context that really helps us get the information that we need to do, and then we start with prompt 1, right? So you know, after you make your goal list and you make your schedule, you can literally just give purpose OS, like that's more than enough. And then you can just define what a gray zone is, and then you can ask it to return it with the top 5 gray zones. For each one, explain why, and for example, like a specific rule that helps. And then most importantly, these models are syncophantic, which basically means that they are made in such a way that they need to please and encourage you to keep on talking. So they're extra nice, and that's why it's really good at all of your comments, or just change the personalization. I know ChatGPT has this ability, which is great. Other models do not, but you can ask it to be more direct, and most importantly, don't sugarcoat it, so that it can actually give you the criticism that you want. Otherwise, it's going to be too nice and too flexible with you, and you don't want that when you are trying to improve such critical areas, right? So this is the type of prompt you can give, and you can expand it. You can just put whatever detail you want. It's about playing with it. It's about getting playful. Like, again, with the second brain, this actually acts like a second brain too, because you're allowing AI to just take all this context and have this endless canvas of like creative exposure to just playful thoughts. Basically, like, all your thoughts are being given, and you can kind of find the patterns in your voice. And that's what these models are trained for, of like going through these different weights. That's how an AI works. It goes through weights, and based on that, it gets probability distribution of, okay, I define what you really want, and then it guesses the next thing. So the context you give will only allow it to get better, and give you the best answer. So that's really the first prompt. And then the second prompt is really, if you want, and I think this is a powerful one, I even did it too, I found it really good, is that you can just give it the framework of the purpose OS, and then you can ask it to ask you 10 questions to really help you build it. And I feel like this honestly should have been prompt 1, because it's really powerful. You can go ahead and start with this actually immediately and get a lot of information. I went ahead and started with prompt 1 on with ChatGPT, and with Gemini, and with Claude, right? And I gave my schedule, and I found a lot of information. I'm actually happy about this. That yes, it's true. At 9 to 11, I should be more detailed about that, because I found that yes, I find procrastination in that time most like a lot, but I also have kind of changed the way that I unwind, that I have more time to just chill and have more lenient, like not really do any work. It's just about whatever time gives, like whatever I feel like to do. And I'm okay with sacrificing those 2 hours of not having really fixed time to do this and that, and that's fine with me. So I can talk back to it and explain, okay, this is actually why I did it, and then it can help understand, okay, so it might be something else, and it gets more information. So you keep on going back and forth like you're talking to a person. That's really it. And then the business development, I mentioned it so many times, but I didn't give detail. That's 100% true. But I have another note thing that I fill in to break these tasks, and I should mention that, right? And then the unwind time, what is it saying? After all, yes. So this is the time when I really, yes, this is true. I really got to be more descriptive, and I do not follow it to this level of degree, and I could definitely work on it. And slash blocks, this is basically all models were saying this, is that these slash blocks are not good, because it's like a fork in the road, and I'm competing between 2 tasks, and that's not the best way to go about it. So I need to not allow that to happen. So I should honestly expand my schedule so that it really is 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. And this is very true, and I actually did not know about this, and now it gave me this information, and I'm going to implement it. That's exactly what I wanted to get out of it, and I was happy that it could give me that information. And then the YouTube blocks, again, are not well defined. So all models, honestly, all of them gave very similar responses. I think Claude is best with the best direct approach. It will not sugarcoat. It's very good at that. Gemini, I find it's really good at just like more research. I don't think it's the best model for this, but it's still a great model. I would still say use it. And then ChatGPT, I think, is the best overall, but it does tend to sugarcoat more. But again, you can change the personalizing to reduce the sugarcoating. But I think ChatGPT is the best with actionables, and I think Claude is the best just to overall talk to. If that helps, I think this is what I've been using these three models a lot, and that's really what I found. But I've been using ChatGPT the most, but now I'm starting to use Claude a lot more, just because I really prefer the direct answers. So that is that, and the next prompt is the weekly review synthesizer, and I highly recommend you use this, because once you finish that weekly review, this is exactly what I do, and I find so much use out of this. I take my weekly review, dump it to a LLM model, like ChatGPT, and I ask it to help me find these patterns. And wow, it is so much better. It's basically you're having a mentor who's like watching you and helping you realize these things, and this builds the self-awareness that we need. That's basically this prompt. And then we have prompt 4, which is the 14-day experiment builder. This is to start experimenting, start building. Okay, what is the things I want to do? And you start to, it's part of the purpose OS. And this is another prompt that you can give. It's really just about using AI as a team member, so that you can really speed up the acceleration of how you go about these actionables, right? And then the if-then rules. This is, I think, the most important, but I would ask you to do it a little bit later once you get these prompts ready and you get the most information out of them, so that you can start doing what you need to do. But the last one I really think is important. Once you get a little bit more data, I think after a month or two, you can start really mentioning these conditions and asking it to really find these patterns, which is, again, the whole point, the catching these patterns. So to leave it there, I'll just show the tools that are really good. Like I said, the models here. You can of course use other models. There's so many. There's open source. You don't even have to pay. All these are paid. Yes, they're freemium. That means that you don't need to pay. But I pay for Claude. I pay for ChatGPT. But that's because I use them for more than just this. But you can also use free models. Even DeepSeek is great. And I would of course, at your own risk, be careful with your data. Don't give ultra personal things to any of these models, but you can definitely help. You can definitely talk openly, but of course you don't want to give your really important details anywhere to any of these cloud models. Local models, which is something that runs just on your device, you can be more friendly with about giving more personal stuff. And yeah, now the dictation, like I say, your phone, Apple, Samsung all have a dictation option. And then Whisperflow is great. There's other models like Whisperflow that are really good at just capturing your dictation, what you say. And then there's different things you can use for your second brain and for your journaling. I use OneNote personally. I use Notes personally. I don't use Word, but you can use it. It's completely fine. It's a great way to start. Samsung Notes, Evernote, and even Journal, which Apple provides to iOS and to macOS. So that's basically it. And I'll leave you with this, with the action, is that just go ahead, download one of these, open a notes page, set a 30-minute timer, fill the OS Lite, keep it small, don't overdo it. Perfectionist is not the goal. You just want to have a little bit done, and then pick one 14-day experiment, create your daily 2-minute journal templates, and schedule your weekly review, and then copy the prompt back into your notes. Then you start to build the loop of using AI, the data, and your ability to start looking from a third person. And that's the pattern we're going to start building to finally, over, I would say, 3 months, you get so much more information than anything else, because I think this is the best way to accelerate. So yeah, The first version should be very simple, so please do not overdo it. Just do it very simple. It could even take 10 minutes. Just get started. That's all. Just get started. And if it feels perfect, it's definitely complex. Like honestly, me looking back at mine, this is too perfect. I would love to cut it. That's my mistake, and I would preferably like to do that. So um because I spent 2 hours on this. This is that I should have reduced the time. And lastly, this is how you become someone who follows through, not once, but consistently. So I'll leave you with this, guys. If your consistency depends on how you feel, you're gonna keep falling. And systems remove these gray zones, and that's what the purpose brings, Purpose OS, and that's what the journals and weekly journals bring, and the review and using AI as the teammate to help you with the acceleration part. Motivation will keep fading, systems will stay. This is how you start. This is how you stop starting over. And most importantly, this is how you start building what really needs that foundation to push to another level. So that's basically it. On the next episode, we go deeper into identity, how to build an identity that actually executes and build those values. I think this episode is really going to be about the technical stuff, the tools and all this, but then I'm going to kind of go even more deeper onto this, on the values, on the purpose, and on the identity. So that will be a great episode to watch, and tune in for the next episode then, and like and subscribe, and thanks so much for watching, and have a great one, guys.